So just a disclaimer, Wurkkos did send me this light to review. That will not affect my evaluation of the light in any way. Truthfully, I was actually surprised when Wurkkos contacted me about reviewing this light because it's intended as a diving light, and honestly, I've never gone diving in my life. But when I saw the light they were offering was a 5000 lumen dual 26650 light based off the Samsung LH351D emitter, I decided I'd be more than happy to do the review. The light comes in a large and very well padded, but plain cardboard box. Included is a micro USB dual lithium-ion battery charger and the accompanying cable. I did not actually test this charger as I used the X-Tar VC4 to charge the batteries, but it seems to be of a reasonable quality and will fill the cells just fine. Wurkkos includes 2 of their protected 5000 mAh 26650s, so you have everything you need right in the box. There are 2 battery tube adapters for 18650s, which is nice but seems like a rather unnecessary inclusion seeing as it does come with the batteries. The light also includes a large lanyard with a rubber tube for extra grip and 2 extra O-rings. This is a big, heavy light, and somewhat unique in that it carries 2 26650 cells in series. It measures 6.1 centimeters wide at the head, 20.1 centimeters long overall, and weighs 367.8 grams. The build of the DL40 is about what you'd expect from a light of this caliber. It is made of what Wurkkos claims is Aerospace 6061 aluminum, and is well machined with a nice, even Type 3 hard anodizing. The engravings on the body are crisp and bright. All of the threads are square cut and fully anodized, and both ends are sealed with a coating of silicone lubricant and 2 thick nitrile O-rings for increased water resistance. The interior of the battery tube is evenly anodized, and there are gold-plated springs in both the head and the tail. The tube has a large square pattern texture that grips well in the hand without being aggressive. Both the head and the tail have cutouts designed to minimize rolling, which are surprisingly effective. The tail has a recessed, flat bottom that will easily allow tail standing, and there's a thin cutout for attaching a lanyard. This lanyard hole is beveled on the outside, but not on the inside, and I feel like it should be a little bit larger, as inserting the included lanyard was somewhat difficult. Wurkkos has elected to use a linear, magnetically actuated digital switch for this light, which is a very cool design that allows for greater water sealing. This button is quite a bit different from other lights you might be used to, in that the actuation is totally smooth and has no distinct bump or click. This might not be to everyone's liking, but I personally really like this button. I just find it very satisfying to use for some reason. The button is solid stainless steel, which is of high quality, and the design is naturally very durable. However, when I received my light, the retaining ring around the button was slightly loose. So if you get this light, and if especially you plan on diving with it, make sure that the ring is properly tightened before using it. The button juts out a fair bit, and is very easy to find in the dark and to operate with gloves. There is no real heatsink on the light, which is something I will talk about later in the review. The bezel is aluminum, and underneath is a piece of hardened mineral crystal glass. There's absolutely no anti-reflective coating to be seen here. Below is a smooth, 4-weld aluminum reflector that is nicely polished and reflective, but is roughly machined along the edges. Finally, there are 4 domed Samsung LH351D emitters that are decently centered with white surrounds. The light meets the usual specifications for durability, with a drop rating of 1 meter and a waterproof rating of IPX8. Of course, being a diving light, the water resistance is much higher than the range usually covered by the ANSI FL1 specs, and the light is rated by Wurkkos to operate down to 150 meters underwater. The IPX8 rating on the light essentially means that it's just completely sealed against water and dust, but this rating usually only covers continuous usage under 1 meter of water. Many lights that meet this rating are actually capable of performing well beyond these specs, with most lights claiming at least 2 meters of water resistance. The DL40 is of course rated for well beyond this level, and as far as I could tell, it seems to be very well sealed and should be capable of meeting the stated depth rating. Overall, the build of this light is good. It's not perfect, with some small issues such as noticeable battery rattle and some noticeable dust under the lens, but it is still well in line with its price tag, and I highly doubt there will be any issues with durability and reliability. In addition, it has a very solid, hefty feeling in the hand that is well balanced and feels really great to hold. The light has a very simple and intuitive interface. There are only 4 output modes, and the light has memory for each mode. To turn the light on is 1 press, and each consecutive press will cycle the modes through low, medium, high, and turbo. Pressing and holding for a half second will turn the light back off, and that's all there is to it. There's no way to instantly access maximum or minimum levels, and no extra blinking modes such as strobe. Pressing and holding from off does nothing. Whether or not this simple UI appeals to you will be a matter of preference, but at least for the intended diving use, this seems like the perfect interface for a light with multiple output levels. On land, however, it may be a bit underwhelming compared to other lights that have multiple modes and a lot more operation flexibility. The only real problem I have with the interface is the inability to gain access to the lowest mode from off. I do think a long press from off should turn the light on to the low mode, as I often forget which mode my lights are set to when I turn them off. and because the DL40 has mode memory and a very high output, it would be very easy to temporarily blind yourself with this light upon activating it. Normally, I'm not a big fan of multi-emitter flashlights, but the last light I reviewed from Wurkkos, the WK30, had a unique multi-reflector setup that worked very well, and I really liked that light because of it. The DL40, on the other hand, uses a much more traditional design, with the LEDs arranged within a single reflector composed of 4 emitter wells that have been merged together. This design has a few advantages, such as allowing for greater throw and output in a smaller head, but comes at the cost of some beam characteristics, and the DL40 is no exception. The beam is nicely concentrated, with a wide usable spill, and clean hotspot with a soft corona. Unfortunately, it suffers from both a noticeable color shift and some artifacting, with rings of uneven light within the spill. The 4-emitter design also results in a dramatic clover-shaped beam periphery. Technically, this periphery allows the light to have a larger spill, and doesn't exactly hamper its usability in any way, but it's certainly not very pretty. Overall, the beam characteristics are not bad, as they are in line with other lights that utilize this type of design. Of course, being this type of design, the beam characteristics are not especially great either. The good news is that this light is based around the Samsung LH351D emitter, which has an excellent color profile. These LEDs produce a beam with a tint of 5000K and have a high CRI of 90. As expected, the beam that results is a nice, creamy white that reproduces color very well. If you have not used this emitter before, I would highly recommend trying out a light that uses it, as it looks much better than even most other popular high-end LEDs from Korea and Nishia. While the color shift of this light is slightly disappointing, the base color overall is still very appealing. Unfortunately, this light definitely has an issue with heat management. While it does possess an active temperature regulation circuit, the light will get very hot very quickly while on turbo. High mode will heat up quickly as well, but is not nearly as hot as turbo. The temperature circuit does reduce the output after a couple of minutes, but not enough to provide a meaningful reduction in temperature. I did not attempt to operate the light on these modes for more than a few minutes at a time, as it got so hot that any driver safety measures would not spare it past that point. However, this is not the whole story here. As I've said a few times already, this light is made for diving, and as such is supposed to be operated while immersed in water. I have no doubt that this would lead to a dramatic improvement in thermal performance, but I have not had the ability to effectively test this. Thus, I can only conclusively maintain that this light does not manage heat well enough for any extended terrestrial use. But if you're using this almost 100 meters underwater, your mileage may vary. Battery life on the DL40 is exceptional, which it ought to be with two 26650 cells to power it. There is some level of circuit boosting, and aside from the temperature-controlled step-down, there is no real noticeable reduction in output as the batteries run low, which in my opinion is very important for any light of this size. As an important aside, this light uses 2 large lithium-ion cells in series. Both the light and the provided cells possess various electronic protection circuits, but any user should be aware that having 2 huge batteries in this configuration could result in some potentially dangerous issues if mishandled. I do not recommend using non-protected cells in this light, and the user should always make sure that both cells are charged to equal levels before using them in the light. If the batteries are used as intended, there should not be any issues, but mixing cell types and/or charge levels could result in a rather unpleasant experience. Overall, I am very impressed with this light, as it offers some incredible output, excellent battery life, and a very pleasing high CRI beam. I would honestly recommend this to anyone looking for a large, powerful light of this type, regardless of use, as I think it is still a great light to use out of the water. It goes for about $80 on Amazon, which makes it a pretty competitive offering with a lot of other lights and brands on the market. Yes, this is the second light Wurkkos has sent me, and it probably won't be the last, but that does not affect my opinion. I genuinely think that this is a great product. If you are in the market for either a large, powerful diving light or 26650 base searchlight with a massive output, the DL40 should definitely be a top consideration. Anyways, that's it for my review. If you made it this far in the video, I want to thank you for actually watching the whole thing, and I'd also like to thank Wurkkos for sending me this light. If you have any questions or suggestions for me, please leave them down in the comments below. If you liked this video, be sure to like it and subscribe and whatever else, and alright, I'm done with this video. I'll shut up now.